Jackson guitars, they're amazing and frustrating at the same time. Today I want to talk to you about why I both love and hate my Jackson, and more importantly, what I did to fix one of its most annoying issues. Welcome back to the channel. Don't get me wrong, folks, Jackson guitars are legendary. They've been used by everyone from Randy Rhoads to Marty Friedman to Phil Collen. They scream 80s, they play fast. They've got that killer look about them. And here's the thing, the famous pointy hockey stick headstock. Now, as cool as it looks, it actually is a major design flaw. Because of the angle that we love so much, the strings pull down with way too much tension on the nut. And on my Jackson, that actually caused the nut to come loose. As you can see, it literally popped off. Now, unless you've got a locking nut on your Jackson guitar, this can be a nightmare for tuning stability. Now, the Jackson models that have a locking nut usually are paired with a Floyd Rose trem system. Now, those guitars don't normally suffer from this issue because basically the nut is screwed to the neck and the locking nut clamps down on the strings and basically takes the tension off of the strings pulling down and keep things secure. But if you got a non-locking nut like mine, the problem is pretty real. So how do I fix this? Well, first I have to reglue the nut. That's the pretty obvious part. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. But then I also came up with a little trick that should fix it once and for all. Well, you can't really call it a trick. It's sort of a cool product. This little guy is called the NutBar, and it's made by Speed Designs in Canada. And it's a very clever solution for issues exactly like mine. Basically, it installs right behind your guitar nut, right there, and applies consistent downward pressure on the strings, kind of like a locking nut would. And that way the nut doesn't take all the stress from the steep downward string angles and pop off. It's kind of like having a string retainer bar, but engineered specifically to stabilize the nut and prevent it from lifting or shifting. The best part is that you get all the tuning stability, all of those benefits without being forced into a locking nut or an expensive Floyd Rose retrofit or something like that. Okay, we're going to take a closer look on how this actually installs. We're going to be jumping over to my messy workbench where I'm going to fix this problem once and for all. So here we are back on my messy workbench once again. And today's victim is this Jackson guitar. It's a killer guitar that I got for not too much money. I love everything about it in terms of the color. I upgraded the pickups on it. It doesn't have a Floyd. I'm trying to get away from Floyd Rose systems if I can. And it has a really nice, comfortable neck. Simple inlays. I'm not a big fan of the shark tooth inlays. I'm more simplistic, so I go with the regular inlays. And here is the problem. These Jackson guitars are notorious for the headstock design. Basically, the issue with this is, as you can see, the angle to which the strings have to go over the nut and then do a really sharp turn downwards causes a lot of strain on the nut. So you can see this nut popped right off even though it was glued in there, and I have to put quite a bit of force to get it back into position so I can see just how much downward tension is being applied on that nut, which is not a good thing. So if you don't have a Floyd Rose locking nut or some sort of unlocking nut system here, you're going to have this problem. You're going to have a lot of tension on the nut, which also causes issues with tuning stability. So those are not good things. And unfortunately, this is a design flaw. It's not the best, functioning headstock, although it's killer in terms of look. So if you have this problem like I have this problem, what can you do about it? Well, I did a little research, folks, and I found a very cool product that is made in Canada. That's a plus for me since I'm Canadian. And this is it. It's made by Speed Design, and they're located in Canada. I'll put all the information in the comments below. And basically, this is a nut bar. And I'll pull it out of the package here so you can see it. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get these strings loosened so that we can have access to this. We're going to have to re-glue that nut back in place. Now, a lot of people in situations like this will simply just resort to glue that is perhaps inappropriate. Maybe they'll put crazy glue in there and a whole bunch of it, and what that does is it basically causes issues for the next time somebody has to go in and maybe work on the nut or remove the nut. I don't like using crazy glue. I'll either use wood glue or hide glue. So let's loosen the strings here and let's re-glue that nut in place so we can go to the next step and install the very cool nut bar from Speed Design. Okay, so the strings are loosened up and out of the way. You can see that this nut is completely loose. And I actually upgraded the nut at one point. This is not the stock nut that came with the guitar. This is a better quality nut. But as you can see, it's not holding in place. You can see the residue here left over of where the previous glue was installed. I'm just going to clean that up a little bit with some sandpaper just to get that residue off, give us a clean surface to apply some glue. I took out the truss rod cover just to be able to not have anything in my way. And I just cleaned out that slot using a little small file, which fits perfectly right there. You want to make sure when you're filing out whatever glue residue you have left that you don't change the angle of that slot in any way. So just take your time, do that nicely. And what you're going to want to do is just get the glue out of there. Now, the color that you're seeing there is actually the color of the fretboard as they routed out the slot. That's just remaining wood in there, so we don't have to remove all of that. And when you actually apply glue, less is more, folks. You don't want to go crazy, and you don't want to drown this entire thing in glue. That's not necessary. You just want to put a drop on one side, a drop on another side, and maybe one on the front right over here, and that should be enough. Okay, so this is about how much glue you need. You don't need more than that. A little goes a long way. We're just going to put a little dab right there, a little dab on this side here, and a little dab right on the front here, like that. And that honestly should be plenty to keep things in place. Have a little bit of a rag ready in case you make a mess, but then you just want to put the nut back in there. And what I like to do is usually apply some pressure. Now, because the strings pull the nut out of whack, I'm just going to press it down and maybe just put a little bit of tape there to hold it in place while it dries, and that will be enough. Just like that. So let's leave it there for about a half hour or so it can dry, and we'll come back and take a look. All right, so we're back. It's been a couple of hours now, which means the glue should probably be dry. It probably takes about 12 hours or so for it to dry completely, but I think at this stage we should be well enough on the way that it's not going to move, and we can continue the install. So let's have a look here. You can see this is the actual main part of the nut. It's two pieces of aluminum, black and silver, and there's slots at the bottom here. This is where the screws that are normally used to hold the cover for the truss rod, these two little screws are gonna basically be put back through these holes to hold everything in place. It'll sit right there. And then it'll hold all of the strings in place, kind of like a locking nut, but it's actually not locking at all, because you can see there are spaces on the other side of this thing where the strings will pass through. So nothing's actually being clamped down. It's just a guide for the strings. So I can see it's very well machined. It looks very nicely put together on all sides. And it should do the trick, I hope. Remove the 3 screws on the truss rod cover, which we did. You will need 2 of these 3 screws for the final installation. Okay, so we have all the screws right here. At least I haven't lost them yet. To make the strings work even smoother with less friction, you can always use any guitar string lubricant on the guitar's nut and nut bar. One thing that they don't actually mention is that you can't put this back. So this has to be removed. So you will have an exposed truss rod here, but that's okay. I don't find that's too much of a drawback overall, since it's painted black within there. Not very noticeable. So let's start off by taking the top portion off here. We'll just use the supplied Allen key and remove those. What I like about this system is that you don't have to modify anything. That's really good. So you can actually just put everything back into the same holes. I don't like drilling extra holes and all that kind of stuff. So you can see everything's really nicely machined. All right. So we're going to put in this right there. And I'm going to try and do this on camera, but it's a little tricky because I do have fat fingers. It's always trickier when you're trying to do this and filming at the same time. And they do say not to over tighten, so I'm just doing this finger tight for now. We don't want to strip anything out. Easy enough. Right, so next, I guess we would have to put the strings back over and put everything back. These strings could use a swap. They're a little tarnished, but I'm going to try my best to make do with them for a little longer, and then probably pull everything off and do a whole, fret polish and rehydrate the neck and all that good stuff. But for right now, let's just put them in there. So far, so good. The nut is holding. I'm hoping the glue is dry enough. Hoping we won't have any issues with that. And then all we need to do is put the screws back now that everything's in its proper place. So let's drop those screws in. Okay, everything seems good. And just so I don't lose it, I'm going to put this last screw back in here so that I know where it is, and I'll try not to lose the actual truss cover here. We'll keep this truss cover in a safe place, and that's all we need to do. Tighten the strings again. And at this stage, I'm just gonna, I don't want to over tighten them yet because I don't know if the nut is actually completely dry, and I don't want it to pop off. Now it's keeping everything straight till it passes the nut bar, and then it starts to curve. So it takes a lot of the pressure off of the nut and just basically adds more support to the strings so that they actually glide through the nut straight like they're supposed to. So I'm hoping that this is going to also make the tuning stability on the guitar better as well. Overall, I think the installation was a breeze. It couldn't have been easier. I like the look of it with the black cover. It kind of blends into the guitar real nice. Doesn't look like it doesn't belong there. And I don't think anybody's going to question it. I think it looks really sharp. Well, Well, that didn't really hurt all that much. It was quite a simple install. And the results, in my opinion, I can clearly see way more tuning stability now. The bends seem smoother and there's no more fear of the nut coming loose. I think we have adequate support now. And I didn't have to add a Floyd Rose or a locking nut system to get there. So that's always a good thing. Now, over the years, players like Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden, Chris Broderick from Megadeth, they swear by the Jackson guitars for their fast necks and very distinctive tones. So, you know, if you're into that 80s style and you want to have a pretty solid guitar, check out some of those Jacksons. They're really, really good. So Jackson guitars are both brilliant and frustrating. And I think this video proves that. Now the headstock does look killer, but you know, it comes with baggage. As long as you're aware, at least you know what you're getting. Luckily, with a little repair work, a little TLC, and a clever solution like the NutBar, you can make your Jackson play rock solid again without having to resort to changing the entire tremolo. Now, if you own a Jackson guitar, let me know in the comments if you've run into this issue. You probably have. At least if you have a guitar that doesn't have a Floyd on it, I'm pretty sure you're probably struggling with your guitar. If you're thinking of grabbing one, or maybe you saw one on the used market that you want to take advantage of, well, at least now you know what to look out for and you know how to fix it. Either way, these guitars are pure 80s history, and that's why I can't really stay mad at mine for very long. They just rock. I'm really, really glad I came across the NutBar from Speed Designs. It was really the solution I was looking for. It solved the problem very easily, a problem that I thought I would just have to live with. So if you're a Jackson owner who's been suffering in silence like I have, and you've been constantly fighting with your nut and tuning issues, do yourself a favor, try one. You can thank me later. I definitely approve of this little piece of gear, and I think this upgrade is well worthwhile, and I should have done it a long time ago. And now my Jackson guitar finally feels complete again, so I can enjoy it. Thanks for watching this review. Hopefully you got something useful out of it. Don't forget to join me on Sunday mornings for the live Addicted to Gear show, where we talk guitars, gear, and everything in between. And of course, if you like what we're presenting here, please subscribe. Until next time, keep on rocking.